I'd like to add that the work of Laura and many other young scientists are being advanced by former Galen Award Committee Chair Roy Vagelos' recent action to fund tuition costs for students at the Columbia Medical School that now bears his name. It gives every promising student, without regard to money or background, an equal chance to fulfill their dreams. On behalf of all of us gathered here, let me say how pleased I am that a man I met years back who agreed to work with us on access to the antiviral drugs that transformed AIDS treatment is setting yet another philanthropic, I can say that, philanthropic treatment. Ensuring we have the human capital in place to deliver a healthier future for all. And we thank you for that. Now, for the highlight of the evening, the Pro Bono Humanum Award. You can get that. That really makes the annual Galen event stand out as something special. I'm channeling here the enduring legacy of the late Galen founder, honorary founding president, and the memorist for one of civilization's darkest chapter, Holocaust survivor, Dr. Elie Wiesel. Back in 2007, Dr. Wiesel conceived the Galen Pro Bono Humanum Award to signify those who exemplify the moral mission of science to make the world more just in the pursuit of good health, not as a privilege for the few, but as a right for all. I'm proud to introduce this year's recipient, Dr. Stanley Crooke, who is being honored for his work in building a new biological Dr. Crooke is being honored for building a new biological access pathway for development of personalized patient-direct treatment for multiple conditions ranging from cancer to inflammatory disorders and infections. More important, he is applying this knowledge to building a new nonprofit foundation model that will support development of personalized treatments for the ultra rarest of life-threatening conditions without reference to normal commercial constraints. In other words, treatments that work for the neglected few. For free, for life. Congratulations, Dr. Crooke. Please join me up here.
Thank you, Sharon. I've followed a lot of great speakers in my career, but I've never followed Sharon Stone. So I think that's probably a new high for me. Thank you, Dr. Fauci, for those very generous comments. As I prepare to share a few thoughts with you tonight about in Lorem, I believe that I'm among the most privileged humans to walk. For almost 5 decades, I've had the opportunity to practice science at the leading edge of science in the service of patients. That privilege, of course, I share with many in this audience. And it is a privilege. And only in retrospect do I understand how fortunate I've been in that for almost all those years, I've been in senior positions with an opportunity to make a difference. And I've also been privileged to have 2 drugs that were discovered and developed at Ionis during my tenure that were recipients of pre-Galen or Galen awards. Spinraza, and Tegsedi. Now tonight, I'm the recipient of this really singular recognition. Thank you very much. I thank the award committee, and I thank the Galleon Foundation for this extraordinary recognition. I think most of us seek recognition for what we accomplish. I know I do. And recognition from our peers is the most valued. That said, I have to say that I'm a bit awed, actually a lot awed, by the previous winners of this award, and so I'm truly humbled and deeply honored to have my name associated with that remarkable list of human beings. Thank you very much. You know, it's now almost 34 years since I founded Ionis, and it's very clear today that RNA-targeted drug discovery is delivering far greater value than even I had imagined in 1989. There are now multiple RNA-targeted drugs that are commercial successes, and there are hundreds of RNA-targeted drugs in development for indications that range from the ultra-rare to the most prevalent of diseases. It is truly broadly enabling. It is much more versatile than any of us could have imagined in 1989. We know how to design ASOs today to take advantage of biological systems that we didn't know existed in 1989. That in itself is just a marvelous thing to think about. The technology is stunningly efficient and highly cost-effective, and it's still advancing. Third-generation ASOs are on the very near-term horizon. They give us consistently a significant increase in potency and therapeutic index. And when you combine those advances to advances in targeted delivery to organs well beyond the liver, I think you can see that the next phases of the technology will deliver even greater value to patients and to the industry. I founded NLORM in January of 2020. Our founding donors were Ionis and our wonderful partner in neurosciences, Biogen. And of course, Roseanne and I have contributed some millions of dollars too. We enjoy the support of those organizations, and we wouldn't be here without their support. And the, I don't think I have the remote. Can you change slides for me? You know, at least I didn't fall when I came up the steps, which I was genuinely afraid of, I'll tell you. As I say, I founded NLORM in January of 2020, and our mission, I think she's doing something to me. Oh, there it is, thank you, already. She didn't do anything terribly offensive or obscene. That's going to get me a hit on the arm when I get home tonight. And I bruise very easily these days. Well, anyway, where was I? Ah, yes. So our mission at NLORM is to take advantage of the technology that we created at Ionis to discover, develop, manufacture, and provide experimental ASO treatments to patients with nanorare mutations for free, for life. Put a little finer point on that. That means for every patient that we accept, we mount a brand new drug discovery program. And our goal is to have the first dose of that ASO in that patient within 15 to 18 months. Now, the technology is tremendously efficient, but that alone would not be sufficient. We also benefit from the strong commitment of the FDA to see this unserved patient population benefit from treatment. And they issued in record time specific guidance for ASOs for this patient population. So it's that combination of new technology and supportive regulatory interactions that make this possible. And I think that's a wonderful model as we think about going forward for other underserved patient populations. And we appreciate the FDA's support. Before I leave this slide, I want to point out that I've never said once the word disease. Many of our patients are singular. There is no name for their disease. But once we know the causative mutation, the name of the disease is entirely irrelevant. We can go to work because we have the tool we need to deal with that. And so I think NLARM is the first industrial-scale mutation-directed drug discovery program in history. And that in itself is an exciting step for the industry. I do think, yeah, oh, sorry. I want to go back to the other slide. There we go. I do think it's time that we parse patient populations more precisely. And the main reason for that is that, particularly as you get down to the very rare patient population, they differ. And the nanorare patient, as I've defined it, is a patient that has a mutation that's unique to that patient or expressed in no more than 30 patients in the world. That is the rarest patient population, and it is truly unserved. It does have one really great advantage, and that is all of our patients have a definable, understandable, single gene mutation that causes the disease, and that is actionable, and that's why we can do it. And that is the only advantage these patients have. They are, by definition, the rarest, most isolated, most desperate group of patients I've encountered. The vast majority of these patients are never diagnosed. They progress from their mutation and succumb to their disease without ever knowing why their lives are shorter, why their lives are less robust than the lives they see around them. That's terrible. And the fortunate few who achieve a diagnosis are in for a long and perilous journey. Average time today from symptom onset to diagnosis is 5 to 8 years. During that time, they're progressing, and they're subjected to misreferrals, misdiagnoses, and far too often, mistreatments. And that is why one of the prime long-term objectives of NLARM is to be the tip of the spear that drives genomic sequencing into newborn evaluation protocols around the world. Only then will we be able to know the true prevalence of these mutations, and only then can we get to these patients before they're in urgent need of treatment. And so we have the opportunity to do something really good for these patients. It's an urgent matter. It is also true that while we don't know the prevalence of these mutations, it's very clear that there are millions that will be found when all humans are sequenced. So any solution has to be scalable. And fortunately, our technology is very easily scalable. At Ionis alone, I think we've treated several 100,000 patients. And we put the infrastructure in place in NLARM so that we can treat thousands of patients. And we intend to do that. There is no other solution for these patients. They are not achievable through a commercial approach. Today, certainly there's no pathway to approval, but more importantly, should someone achieve commercial approval, one would have to charge these patients and families millions of dollars a year. And I really believe, that as an industry, we can surely do better than that. And we better, because should that happen, it will do great, irreparable harm to the industry we love. And so we are committed to a nonprofit model, and that does mean that we are blazing new ground, that every step we take is a step into the unknown. I've done that before. And if we create a quality path, then others, as other technologies mature, can follow. And that's how we'll get the leverage to move from the thousands of patients that we plan to treat to the millions of patients who need our help. We need to do this, and we need to do it the right way. The response to NLORM has been literally overwhelming. I thought with COVID and the novelty of the idea, we might have a handful of patients that have applied for treatment today, and maybe treat a patient. Not true. We've received almost 170 applications. I expect by the end of the year to be approaching 200. We've approved for treatment more than 75 patients. So the simplest way to think of NLORM is that we're a 3-year-old biotech company with more than 70 drug discovery programs, more than 35 drugs in development. And in 2 weeks in August, we filed 4 INDs. Maybe our pals at Pfizer will file 4 INDs in 2 weeks, but I think they have quite a few more people than the 20 who did it at NLORM. And so we're very proud of that. And all of those INDs went through the FDA well. It's not for me. It's for these patients. It's not for me. We filed these INDs. We're treating those patients. We expect to file more before the end of the year. And next year, if we have sufficient resources, it's going to be easy for us to file 25 more. And in the coming years, that will grow exponentially. Think of the value we can create for these patients, and they need it. So we're off to a great start. And if I were to show you the genes and the mutations and the genotype phenotype correlations and the variations in the phenotype, you'd understand that what we're learning already is amazing. And what we're going to learn will ramify across all disease spectrum. And I hope it changes the way we think about health and disease altogether. And it's time. It's time that we start focusing on what is a healthy phenotype. How do you maintain that homeostatically? And what are the steps from a healthy phenotype to what we recognize as a disease, which of course has taken millions of steps at the molecular level. When we do that, I think we're really going to add value to patients and the industry. And so that information is going to be available to us. And it's in the ultimate right test subject, us. Patients who need these medicines. Fortunately for us, the support has been equally overwhelming. Almost every vendor to the oligonucleotide side of the industry is a donor and contributes in kind. And those contributions in kind have reduced the cost per patient by 40%. That's half a patient. That's a half a patient I can treat. So we thank them. We have a growing number of biotech and pharma partners, and I fully expect that to increase by the end of this year. We also have a growing number of disease-focused philanthropic efforts. See, Sharon, I have trouble with the word too. I designed it to make her feel better, just being a poor actress. So we are getting great support. And we also have a large number of individual donors who've been highly supportive. And we thank all of them. We couldn't do it without them. And this night has already been a spectacular success because one of our most generous supporters has just told me that they plan to give us an additional significant grant. And that's the Wolverine Foundation. And we thank them especially for making this night an even more wonderful night for me and for our patients. Of course, we know that we've only scratched the surface and that In front of us is the challenge of demonstrating that this model is sustainable. But I think the response to date gives me a lot of optimism. But what gives me absolute confidence we're going to get this done is the reason for the support, and it's the mission. I think we in this room know that our industry has a great heart. But far too often, it's obscured by the abstraction of science and medicine and business. And it's obscured not just from our patients who need us and the pundits who criticize us, but from ourselves. And when we lose sight of the fact that we work for the patient, that this industry is special, and we have a special purpose, we lose our motivation and we lose our way. And when we do that, we do harm to the industry. So the reason for support for NLORM, I think, is really simple. It is a tangible, poetic expression of the heart of our industry. There are no abstractions. We're blinded to patient identity, but almost all of our patients unblind us because they're on the internet looking for answers. So we know their names. We know the families. It is a wonderful experience, and I treasure it. Which brings me to the most remarkable privilege I think I enjoy. Every phase of my life has exceeded anything that my prior experience prepared me to dream. And NLORM is the capstone to that. To be perfectly frank, I didn't want to do NLORM. Not at this stage of my career or my life, but it was a moral obligation to do it. But I was wrong. This has been the most rewarding, enriching experience of my career. I commend it to you. Thank you. It's not for me. And if all of our partners tell us that partnering with NLORM has been one of the best things they've done for their morale and employee commitment. And I will say this to you, that if you as individuals decide to join us, or you join us on the part of your corporation, it will be great for your heart, and it will be great for the heart of your company, as it has been for mine. And you know, there's an expression that Thomas Jefferson coined for the Lewis and Clark expedition that I've admired many years. He called it the core of discovery. And I think that's an apt description of NLORM. It's a core of discovery of the mind and of the heart. Of the heart. Well, I share this award with many. Of course, most importantly, I share it with the patients and families we serve. I've described poverty as being much worse than simply not having the money to feed and clothe yourself and your family. It is that, of course, but poverty sets in when hope is lost and the ability to dream is crushed. I know, I lived that as a youth, and hopelessness is a terrible state for anyone. These mutations destroy patients, but they impoverish families. They destroy their ability to hope and to dream. And you hear that best when you talk to the parents of our pediatric patients. I'll tell you a story. There's a young couple in Southern California who had their first child, a healthy daughter. And as sometimes happens, their daughter failed to meet milestones. And there ensued a long journey that culminated in the middle of her third year when their daughter had 2 MIs and had to be resuscitated and finally was referred to a tertiary care center where the diagnosis was made very, very rapidly. This disease was described in the 1930s as Cockayne syndrome. It's an rapid aging syndrome. She had MIs because she had terrible atherosclerosis. And when the mother was asked what she hoped for, what she dreamed of from the ASO, she took a long time to think about it, at least it felt like hours to me. I think it was only a few seconds. And she said, a few more days. Imagine your hopes, your aspirations reduced to a few days. And here's even worse news. We couldn't do it for her. Her daughter died before we could get the ASO. Sorry. I swore I wasn't going to embarrass myself tonight, but I guess I succeeded. But, you know, we also have already wonderful stories of personalized ASOs regenerating life, providing new hope and new dreams for patients and families. And to tell that story, I want to introduce you to Anna. Anna is an 18-year-old German teen. Her mother is Sonia, and her physician is Dr. Neil Snyder of Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons. And Neil and his wife Leah are here, and so I'm sure Neil will be delighted to chat with you if you have more questions about Anna. So let me introduce you to Anna. Let me try.
Anna was born.
I'm sorry. This is important.
Anna was born in July 2004. Anna became very athletic. She loved skiing. She loved playing tennis. In February 2020, we went skiing. She had a lot of fun skiing, and we didn't notice anything. Until the end of May 2020, she got weaker and weaker. She couldn't hold up her head anymore. She couldn't walk long distances anymore. She couldn't swallow anymore. Only at the moment that these genetic findings were explained to us, and it was a shock that it was ALS. The whole world stood still. In Germany, all the ALS doctors, they just said, no way of curing this disease. No hope. We talked to Dr. Schneider, and he told us at once that this form of ALS is very aggressive.
16-year-olds don't get ALS. They're not supposed to have this disease.
July 2021, we noticed at home, we noticed some progress, like it was easier for her to climb upstairs.
Anna's situation is complicated. She had an event, an acute event, where her airway was blocked, she developed pneumonia, so she had an acute illness. So she lost a lot of ground while she was in the hospital. I've seen enough of these P525L, kids, so they don't get better, right? There's no reason, or no other way to explain, her situation, other than we may be doing something good here. Now you look at her, and she has extraordinary head control. She stood from a seated position on the floor with minimal help. She walks upstairs. She walks around with her ventilator. I mean, it's really unmistakable improvement, and that's really lovely to see.
It was a miracle for us as well. The big hope we have now is that it works, that she can have a happy life.
I don't know if you noticed that in that last clip, she was seated and she got up rapidly with no help, walked rapidly back and forth. That's amazing. I think Neil said it best. It's lovely. A couple of weeks ago, Sonia sent me an email, and Anna has been fitted with a speaking tube for her mom, so her mom got to hear her voice for the first time in a very long time. So we get to experience that. And that is why you and I come to work every day. Anna is why you and I come to work every day. Why we labor against impossible odds. why we soldier on through disappointments and failures and unwarranted criticism. It's Anna. She's why we're here tonight. She's the awardee. Of course, I share this with our donors, and we couldn't do it without them, and we need more. And so thank all of you. I share it with the wonderful team in Lorem. One of the things I was most worried about in founding in Lorem was that I wouldn't be able to recruit outstanding people. And already I believe that the team that's been assembled is the strongest, most cohesive team I've ever had. And the reason is the mission. It's simple, that. I mean, obviously we can't pay as much as companies. There are no RSUs. There are no stock options. Nobody's going to get rich. At least nobody's going to get rich in their pocketbook. And I share this with my wife, Roseanne. Yes, she's a donor, and yes, she works every day for in Lorem, but I'd rather focus your attention on her contributions to the technology, to the science that makes this possible. Her group was the first group to perform suborgan PK/PD studies for any drug, I think. And those methods have enabled us to do that in all the other organs that we're working in. Her group discovered the drug that saved the company and the technology, mipomersen, and her group has created what I believe is the most innovative and important cardiorenal metabolic pipeline in the industry. And she was instrumental in helping me create the culture at Ionis. It was a true strategic asset. So thank you, Roseanne. I appreciate it. Lastly, I accept this recognition, as I do all recognition, in honor of Professor Harris Bush. Harris was chairman of pharmacology at Baylor College of Medicine for many decades. He gave me opportunities that I absolutely did not earn. He introduced me to the joy of science and the privilege of taking care of patients. He became the closest thing to a father I've had, and he and his wife, Rose, became my family. I stand on his shoulders, as do we all. We stand on the shoulders of the great scientists, physicians, entrepreneurs, and business people who preceded us, and we honor them when we pay it forward. And I'm confident that Harris would be proud of in Lorem. And thank you for letting me share a few of the hopes and dreams of in Lorem with you tonight. It's been a real pleasure to do that. Thank you so much.